Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to this rendition of Digital Scholarship Workshops. My name is Kevin Gunn. I'm coordinator of Digital Workshop, coordinator of Digital Scholarship at the Catholic University America Libraries. And today we're going to be doing a basic run through of the ArcGIS software. I'll show you how you can get access to it, and then we'll work through a handout that I've put in the chat, and it'll just be a fun time. We're just going to play with ArcGIS and just see what we can do with maps and what sort of features are available to us. So starting right off, I'm going to now move to our handout. Here. All right, there we go. So using ArcGIS moving forward, we know that geographical information systems are definitely changing how we work in various different ways in that. One of the great things about using GIS software, especially ArcGIS, is that you can use it to embed maps, stories of maps into your general larger narrative. So it's definitely a skill worth pursuing and developing as you do your research. So basically, what is GIS? It is a system that lets you visualize, question, analyze, and interpret data to understand relationships, patterns, and trends. So this can be quite complicated in the sense that you're using particular data sets that can be hundreds of thousands of fields, variables, that sort of thing. Today we'll be working through a particular research question where we'll just be using a handful of fields to demonstrate some of the features of ArcGIS. So the important thing to remember about the data that you're using is that they're geo-referenced to the coordinates of a particular projection system is how it's put it. So you have longitude and latitude, and you're putting that material along with text and other features up on a particular map and then sharing it. So most GIS systems have a standard. In this case, this one's called the WGS 884. There may be even a later rendition of that. I put a footnote down here on it, right here, that you can take a closer look at what exactly the different types of what they're called world geodetic systems are. You can check and see what what that standard is. You'll notice when we are working with different maps, we're just not looking at one type of map. We can add a number of layered maps, one upon each other, and that will provide greater insight and understanding of what our research can be about. So let's go here. So first thing we're going to do, so we need to get you set up on a public account. I'm going to click on arcgis.com. And here's the main site here. They have a lot of different features that you have. So there's ArcGIS Online, there's ArcGIS Pro, all these huge ones for developers and for enterprise businesses. We're not going to use any of that now. You can use ArcGIS Online, but you do have a trial subscription for it at that point. So we actually want to avoid even that. So what we want to do is we want to go to the sign-in page up here, top right-hand corner. So if you already have an account, you just log in and you're good to go. If you don't have an account, you're going to need to create an account right here. So if you do click on that, what you can do is you can scroll down. You can do an ArcGIS public account right here and just fill this out. And you just do first name, last name, email, and then they'll ask you to do the legal stuff right there. And then you should be able to have an account. So I'm going to let you do that. While you're doing that, I'm going to go back and log in under my own account here. All right, so I'll give you another minute to do that. You notice the top right-hand corner, I'm logged in as myself, so I've got that going. Just scrolling down, they do have a lot of hands-on tutorials to show you how to do specific things. You can do story maps, that sort of thing. Not that we're going to do any of that today, but you do have those sorts of options. All right. All right, so once you are have an account set up, and like I said, it's a public account, so the functionality, a lot of the functionality is going to be limited. You're only going to be able to put up maybe 1,000 data points at that point. But it is something that if you have a small project, then it is worthwhile going this way. And it can get kind of pricey using ArcGIS if you decide to go with the online version or the pro version. So, all right. So if you go up to here where it says map, click on map. All right, so here we have the main page, and this is where we're going to be spending most of our time today. You'll notice a number of different items here, details. We can add features, base maps. I'll explain all this in all due time. So what is it that we're going to do today? If you go to the handout, I put in a practical exercise. And what I've decided is the best way to learn something is actually to try to work with different data sets and pull it together and see what you get out of that. So I put myself in the position of a city manager at Vancouver, British Columbia. And, I noticed a problem that, like most cities, we have homeless who are in need of care. And one of the problems we face is letting the homeless know that services are available to them. So, as a city manager, I would like to consider whether, see if the homeless to have access to social workers in a number of locations other than in our main social work office. So I'm not too sure how I want to go about that. So I'm going to think about maybe, where do the homeless frequent? And obviously, homeless shelters, malls, and public libraries. So perhaps maybe public libraries have been mentioned as a place for locating social workers, bring social workers right into the community. So if we go this route, which libraries in Vancouver would be best suited for community outreach? So we have a question like that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to know where the libraries are, and we need to know where the homeless shelters are. And for some of us, maybe we need to know where Vancouver is. So what I'm going to do now is that we have a link right in the handout here. We're going to go to the City of Vancouver's Open Data Catalog. So let me just create a new browser here. Okay. So it's open data .vancouver.ca, then /pages, then /home, and then one more /. So there we are. So there's their page here. So, past several years, a lot of the government agencies, city, state, federal, have been putting a lot of their data up on the web, which is really great. You have access to a lot of great information. One of the things that I also teach on is data literacy. And one of the things I mentioned, data literacy, is looking at such things as what is the data that is gathered, when was the last time it was gathered, taking a look at the data. You want to make sure that you have your variables. There's one variable per field, per column, per row, that sort of thing. So you really have to do a lot of be aware of what it is that you're downloading. A lot of data sets out there are quite useful, quite good. They're ready to go. Others need to be cleaned up and processed before you can actually use them. So I just give that little editorial there. So in this case, we're going to be pulling three different data sets from the website here. So we're going to pull city boundary, libraries, and homeless shelter. So each data set usually has more than one file format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the city boundary. That's the city boundary for Vancouver. And oh, great, we have 43 data sets. So we spend some time here. I scrolled a little too quickly, and here it is. So this data set contains a line to find the edges of the city's legal jurisdiction. So that's kind of good. As the city manager, I sort of need to know that, right? So I have a number of ways that I can export this. I have the table and map. I can look at the data here. Let me just click on city boundary. So it tells me a quick overview, how it's been used, when was the last time it was updated, that sort of thing, quite useful. So what we're going to do is we want to export this. And you'll notice right away, which I really like about the Vancouver website that many other places do not have, is they'll tell you the standard that they're using here. So it's WGS 84. So that's the most dominant one here, but you could use this other one called the EPSG. I'm not too sure what it stands for, but you are aware that you're downloading, if you're using a particular data set, that you have to use that particular that standard. It's good to know. So we're looking at this, and we look at the number of sites, the files that we can download. So we can download the CSV files, JSON, Excel, if we want to do that sort of thing. Today, we're going to do the shape files. So the shape files are not the CSV in the sense that they're points. They're more in the way of shapes that you can bring onto a particular site. So there's a whole area of dealing with shape files and how you can section off different geographical spaces and that sort of thing. So we're going to be using this particular shape file for this for our city boundary. So you just download that. And shape files are going to be zipped files, and that's okay because we can just load the zip file right into ArcGIS. That's not a problem. So I've downloaded that. Now I'm going to go back to our main page. And I'm going to do the same thing with libraries. Here we are. We didn't have to go too far with this one. I'm going to click on export. Now, here's the thing. Since libraries are finite points on a map, you could use the CSV and work with that. So it's definitely an option. In this particular case, I'm going to use shape files, and I find I get better results with the shape files in this case than using the CSVs. So I'm going to download the shape file. And one more, our homeless shelters. And here we go, last modified February 2020, so fairly recent. I'll do export, and I'm going to do a shape files with this one here. Okay, so hopefully you've saved them on your desktop someplace handy. We're now going to go back to ArcGIS right here. So we are now ready to input some data sets here. So importing a shapefile into ArcGIS, so you're going to import it, and the shapefile generally has fewer than 1,000 features, and it's usually compressed into a zip file, which is directly stored in the root of the zip archive. So we're going to add the shapefile. So we go to add over here, and I'm going to just click on once, and we notice we can have a number of different features here. So we can search for layers that ArcGIS provides if we wanted to go that way. There is a thing called browsing. They have a living atlas, whole project onto itself. We're not going to bother with that. We can add a layer from the web. If we had something out there that was worthwhile. What we're going to do is we're going to do an add layer from the file. So I'm going to click on that. And you get this little pop-up that says add layer from file. So locate the file you want to import. So is it a shape file? Is it CSV or text file? If you want to do that, you have the GPS exchange format, that's sort of an XML version. And then of course you have the GeoJSON. So I'm going to do browse, excuse me. And I'm going to go to library, city boundary. The first thing we're going to do is the city boundary. There you go. Once it uploads this, it's going to ask you general features for web display, or do you want to keep the original feature? So we're going to use generalized features for web display. One of the options, where is this final product going to reside? Is it going to be an app? Is it going to be a website, something embedded on a website? You have to ask these sort of questions ahead of time before going forward. Since this is just for myself, I'm just going to use the generalized features for web display. So I'm going to import this layer. And there we have it. So here we have, you can see the boundary for Vancouver here, the solid red line, which is pretty cool. So you know you're successful when you can see the solid red line, right? So that's the first thing. Now, at this point, I would mention to you, one of the good features is that right now, I can cancel this down here. We're going to do done for now. I can delete it. I can remove it, that sort of thing. I'll show you how you can do that. So until you save it, it's basically malleable in that sense. You can remove it if you want. In fact, what you can do is just go up here, click on city boundary here if I didn't like how it loaded, and you can go down to remove, and that will remove it, and you don't have to worry about it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm also going to add the libraries and the homeless shelter places right now. So I go up to add, and I go add layer from file again. And we go through the same screen, and this time we're going to do libraries. That's a zip file. There you go. They all have these wonderful black dots, and we even get a little menu in the map. So I'll do done. And one more thing we'll do. So homeless shelters. And we're going to do the generalized features. And boom, there we go. And we even get locations and that sort of thing. So here we have all three listed here. I do mention here on the handout that you can drag and drop a CSV file right into the map. I'm not going to do that now. I've noticed with the particular CSV for this particular for libraries, it doesn't work all that well. It spreads the location is not in Vancouver, but elsewhere for some weird reason. It doesn't read the addresses properly in that sense. So again, this isn't just a plug and play thing. You're going to have to do a lot of tweaking with the material. In this case, I use a shapefile, so I can avoid that. We're just focusing on Vancouver proper. So it's one way to avoid it. And mention that, you know, there's a limit of 1,000 records that can be imported to the map. And sometimes the data points will not transfer cleanly, so you have to clean them up. So, all right, so we have the city here. I'm just gonna step back a little bit. There we go. You get a big sense of what is available on the map. Now, this point, can we use a base map? Can we use something like that? And in fact, the ArcGIS actually gives you a number of base map faults that you defaults that you can use. So if you go up to here under base map, here are a number of different things that we can use. So you can have some fun and playing around with the different variations that's listed here. So this case, this one here seems to be streets is the default in this case. I think it's topographic. Oh, okay, in that case it is. So there you go. In this case, it's a city, right? But we want to be use something a little bit more specific. So we're going to select OpenStreetMap. So there you go. And it should load. There we go. So it looks a little bit different. And when you go right down to the basics, you can now see a lot of the detailed buildings, the streets, the back alleys, that sort of thing. So kind of useful in that regard. I'm just going to scroll back out here a little bit. All right, so that's it. So we actually have 4 maps here. So we have the homeless shelter locations, libraries, the city boundaries, and the OpenStreetMap. So 4 different layers, if you will. So at this point, we should save. And I'm going to save this. And this is the first time. So it's going to say, okay, what do you want to do with this? So I'm going to say Vancouver libraries and homeless shelters. And you're going to have to add tags. So I'm going to say libraries, homeless shelters. And what's going to happen is it's going to be saved on the web. It's a public thing, so other people get to look at it. So just to let you know. And then summary, you can just say, I'm going to say locating libraries near homeless shelters. And then save in my folder. So There we go. So now there they are, they're saved. And we're looking at it. We go, well, that's a good start. I got my boundary here. I've got a whole bunch of dots. So I think I can actually clean this up a little bit better than what I have. So what I can do is I can start working with some of the data here. So first thing I want to do is look at the boundary, and it's like solid red. I mean, we could keep it like that, but we could also change it up a bit. So I'm going to select over here city boundary and just click on it. It immediately tells you, okay, what is it that you're looking at? Well, in this case, it's just one thing, right? It's a red line. So it's not very helpful. So what I can do is I can click on the 3 dots. Right, and I'm saying city boundaries, and I know it seems kind of variation. So I can actually change this, rename it. So I'm going to click on rename, and I'm just going to say, let's take that out and say city limit. So there you go. I've changed that there. Haven't really done anything to this, but I do know what I've got here, city limit, or if I want to call it city line, I can do that. Now, let's say I don't want a red line. I want to sort of explore my options here. So you can select the change style image, which is these colored figures here. So I'm going to click on that. And I've got a pull-up menu here. So I can do unique symbols here, or I can do location single symbol here. So it makes sense, since I'm only dealing with one red line, I want to do the single symbol. So let me click on that. And we get this popping up option. So I'm going to click on that. And now we have a number of features here that you can work with. So just to give you an idea, if I were to, you'll notice, I'm going to drag this a little bit here. So you see the line here, right? So it looks like a pretty solid line now, but let's say I wanted to have it a little bit transparent. You'll notice that it has changed once I click this, or if I go back. So you have that specific feature. You'll notice under visible rain, you have the suggestion option. So I'll say, okay, why don't you have it located there as the default? So when you go look at this map, that's the default here. You can change that. If you look at show cities right now, here's how you can change a lot of this right here. I'm not going to click on these, but you can look at from a rural perspective all the way down to town, neighborhoods, streets, buildings, even a room at 1/100. So you do have that option there if you so desire. I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm not going to bother with that. So I mentioned, we had the red line. It's now black for some reason. So we want to change that up. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on symbols. So now we have different options that we can use. So I've been using red recently, so I can select that. There's always a little bit of presentation that you want to give here. You have the transparency feature here as well. You have the line width. So right now, as you can tell, it is very much very thin at 2 pixels. So we can change it maybe to 6. Let's try that. Change it to 6. That's a little thicker. We have a solid line, but we have options here. So you're playing around with this a number of respects. You're working more on the presentation of your data rather than the actual content. And even if you're looking at something, if you want a particular direction, then you can put this in a particular direction. In this case, it doesn't make much sense with city boundaries. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. And I'm going to click OK. And boom, there we go. So let me just going to zoom out. Oh dear, did it disappear? Okay. So let me center that. There we go. So if we take a look at that feature, right, it's no longer present because we've sort of expanded beyond the city. See that, the visibility range? That's a good point to make. But once we focus strictly on Vancouver, there it becomes available. So nice little feature. You'll notice we haven't finished yet. We still have to press OK. So I'm going to press OK there, and I'm going to press done. And there you go. So we're very clear what the boundaries are for Vancouver. Now let's zoom in a little bit. All right, so one thing about working with a map is you want it to be interchangeable. So if you take a look at this particular one here, I'm going to just click on it once, and this tells me some basic information here. So it tells me this is a Joe Fortis library. I have no idea, just the basis of that, unless I live in Vancouver. So one suggestion here would be to call it, the Joe Fortis Public Library or something to that effect, so people know what it is if they're coming from outside of Vancouver. You'll also notice they have an edit feature. So you can immediately edit this particular link here if you wanted to. So I'm just going to say library right here. And I'm getting a little pop-up menu. Let's say maybe I don't want to do that. Let's see what happens. Oh, it took it out. So in this case, it's not going to allow me to do that. I have to go into another place I'll show you in a second and how to work with that. You'll also want to take a look at something like, here, let me close that. You'll notice it provides a URL link. There we go. So that looks possibly useful, but we'd have to go check. All right. So you'll notice this button here, you can move away from, if they don't have an undo button, you can always use that and they'll get you out of it, out of the screen that you're on. So in this particular case, we can change, we have dots representing the libraries as well as dots representing the homeless shelters. And I think we need to be, be explicit, distinguish between the two if we can. So what we can do is we do have options here. I'm going to go to libraries. I'm going to click on change styles, and I'm going to get this page listed here. You have types, unique symbols, options, location, select things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select unique symbols. you know, and I take a look and I can see what is represented here. So they list a number of them, then they list a number of other libraries here that fall under the category here as other. So it's good to know what it is that you're looking at. If I go back out and start back in, if I go to locations, symbols, and that, again, I'm confronted with this page, but now what I can do with libraries is that I can go to symbols. So if I click on symbols, I now have a number of options here. So what I can do is I've got these listed here, these particular shapes, they're default, but you're not limited to that. If you go under shapes, pull down, you have a whole bunch of different things that you can use here. And I was playing with this a little bit earlier today and it didn't seem to be loading properly. But when it does work, oh, yeah, it did it. All right, wonderful. So here we have all these particular symbols that you can use. So I am going to scroll through here. And there's actually a symbol of a library, actually a person reading. See if there we are, right there. So you've probably seen this around town and that. So I'm going to use that one. I've selected it. And I'm also going to jack it up to 12px because it may be a little bit too small. So I'm going to select OK. All right, good. And you'll notice right away that all my libraries have this nice little purple feature here. So I'm going to go OK and done. And let me just zoom in, take a look at that. There it is, still kind of small, right? Even when I zoom in, the pixel size still remains the same. So you may have to go back and play with it, you know, make it larger and that, so you can see. So we begin to see from our particular branch here, we're looking at Joe Fortis, right? And we notice that we have a public display of this item. So we can take a look at this, says URL link. So more info, I'm gonna click on that. And what happens is we get a page not found. So my data is not up to snuff here. And I said, oh, darn, what's happening here? So I actually looked before and it's listed as HTTP, but with no S. But that doesn't seem to be a problem. The problem is a /, simple /. And there you are. We're now at the Joe Fortis branch. So you're working with their data. You're assuming it's clean, it's perfect, but not necessarily. So now I have two choices here. I can literally go through oops, let me go back here. I can literally go through every page, every link here and edit it. So here I go, right? I can do S there and / there. Let's see if that'll work. I see. All right, so I'm going to do that. Always have to close the things first. There we go. Let's see if this works. There we go. So I can do it one by one by one by one. So if I don't have too many points, then I could probably do that. You're better off if you're dealing with a larger data set. You're going to have to go back to your original data set and make those changes, clean up that data that bit. And I'll tell you right now, all the libraries have this. Libraries with the link have this problem. So something to be cognizant of as you're moving forward. All right. So that's the first thing there. So you have pop-up message contents. So by default, all the field attributes will be displayed in the pop-up menu. So maybe you don't want, so you can click on that. So we have the address, name, URL, link, and geolocation, right? So maybe you want to add stuff, or maybe you want to take some stuff off. So what you can do under libraries, you can click on the 3 dots, go to configure pop-up. And you have a number of features that you can use here. So it tells you what is happening. So you can, if you don't want any pop-up at all, you just deselect that and you're good. So we definitely do want pop-up. The title's a default. We have these particular attributes that tells us what is displaying right here, right now. But you know what? That's not all the attributes are there. So it only lists 4, but wait, we actually have more. So if I can select on configure attributes. So here are the 4. They're showing display, and they're showing that we can edit them. So you have the options, for example, that you can display the address but not edit it, or you can display the URL but not edit it, that sort of thing. In this particular case, we have the field name identification number. So I'm going to put that in there, right there, and I'm going to press OK. And I'm going to do OK again. And if I go back to our friend Joe Fortes, you'll notice the FID is now here. Right here. And let's say I try to edit. I'm clicking on the FID and I cannot do it. I cannot change it. I'm clicking on the address and you see the cursor. It pops up, allows me to edit if I so desire. So pretty cool. And of course, let me just go back here. So if I wanted to do this again, but this time, go back here. If I want to do configure pop-up and I want to make things simpler, I can do configure attributes. So let's say I don't want the FID, I want the address and name, no URL, or the geolocale. I click on that. I go OK. Click on that once, and I have a bit of information here, not much. So you can actually put a lot more material in here. For example, an image can pop up, these sorts of things. It depends on the particular data set that you're working with. So you can see the potential, what you can add into that. So you can have a little, if you're doing ArcGIS with story maps, for example, you can put an image that would present itself when you do pull over or when you move the cursor over the point. So that is how you can work with different data points. Now let's say this map is a little dated. For example, we just opened up a library literally last week. So we're like, oh, well, that's kind of great. It's not on here. Let me just add that library right now. So what you can do is you can go up to add. At the top here, we had, the add layer from file and that. So now we can do add map notes. You say add map notes, that's what we're going to call it. We're just going to do the template of this. I'm not going to worry about all this other stuff. And we're going to create. And this gives us a menu. So at this point, you know, what do we want? Do we want to demonstrate with a cross, a push pin, a stick pin, all these different little symbols that we can use in that. So I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to click on stick pin. So I've selected that. And now when I move my cursor over, it's going to say, okay, where are you going? So if I know that we have a new library that's just over here, I can click on that. And I'm going to call it, we haven't named it yet. So I'm going to say my new library. I can give a description. I can give an image URL if I wanted, or a link, that sort of thing. Some websites up, and boom. And then what I can do later is that if I want to have it the same symbol as the other libraries, I can go in and treat it like that as well. So that is a quick way that you can add something to it. All right. So at this point, we've done the basic features of ArcGIS with maps. I mean, there's a lot more material that we can use in that. What we want to do at this point, so we're not quite finished here. We definitely want to share our map link. So what we'll do is we want to, first of all, save our work. There we go. And what we want to do, so we want to go to share. So you want to link to it or embed it, that sort of thing. You do have to make it public. So there you go. You now have your own unique URL. It takes a few seconds for it to process. And then you can do a number of things. You can embed it in a website. That's your desire. Or you can create a web app with that. So let me embed in a website. And whoa, look what we got here. We have all these different features that you can use. So you can do the size of your map, you know, if you wanted 500 by 400. If you wanted to embed it with HTML, you can do that. And you absolutely have these different options if you wanted to go through and take a look at things like that. So you can provide map details, perhaps a home button. And let's see. That you have listed. You do have view larger map if you wanted to, and your theme can be dark or light. I'll just leave it as is. Oh, so I haven't copied my embedded HTML yet. So if you want to do that, you know, now's the time to do that. In this case, I will just do this. And now my URL would be, let me do this again. Let's see, everyone, embed. Let's see, I'm going to cut and paste this. Let's see if this works. Okay. All right, so it seems to have worked. Would have to check it. I would prefer to log out of ArcGIS and see how it presents itself. But that's generally the idea of how you go about using ArcGIS. So I'm going to just do done here. There you go. So that is the workshop for today. Does anyone have any questions? All right. We have one. You are most welcome. We'll have a whole bunch of more workshops in the fall. This is the last one for this semester. So thank you everyone for coming out, and appreciate the work. If you have any questions, you can contact me. My email is gunn at cua.edu. That's GUNN at CUA.edu. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you regarding ArcGIS or anything else for that matter in digital scholarship. So take care. Bye-bye.